Okay, we are back with the Dave Elswick Show, and with David Crow and Nick Horton, and we have decided to take over, and we've locked Dave out. Yeah, we've locked him out of the room, and we're actually trying to figure out exactly what we're going to talk about, but I'm sure something will come up.
Oh,
and there it is. Here comes the man.
Down the hallway.
Sorry. That's what the problem is being PD. What can I tell you? I walk out of this office, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, but we did a good intro for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Back with you, Dave Elswick Show, KARN. Bruce Westerman, the Majority Leader, joins us here on KARN. Hey, Bruce, how are you?
Great, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, except I was late for my own show.
Yeah, I heard that. I thought you might have just left because I was going to be on it.
No. Yeah, I'll let you know that I was not late for my own wedding or any births of my children, but I was just late now. Anyway, Dave Elswick Show, KARN. Bruce, the word came out today in a meeting that was going on down at the Big Mac building. Allison told David Meek's son a very straight question that if you all defund the PO, the federal government cannot do anything about it. How big is that for you to hear that?
I think that's big news. I'd actually spoken to Representative Meeks about the hearing, and he had informed me about that. So, yeah, that is big news. I know there was some concern with something that was in the waiver about a 7-month period and appeals process, and my understanding was that was explained that that was only if something was going to be changed on the private option, but if we ended the private option or ended funding for it, that there wouldn't be any adverse effects on the state as far as funding from the federal government. And really that goes back to Judge Roberts' ruling in the Supreme Court decision back in June of 2012.
Well, now, we were at the Conservative caucus today, and by the way, Nicholas Horton is here, David Crow is here. They're going to jump in here with some questions as well. And we were talking, and it seems that the representatives we heard from today, Stephen Meeks, David Meeks, Jason Rapert, and I'm trying to think of the lady from Northwest Arkansas. Charlotte Douglas, that the conservative side of the House and even of the Senate understand that for people who are 100% poverty and below, that they need something to have something there. They've been given something already, and that you all will try to patch something together during this session. Is that the case?
Well, I know there's a lot of different plans being worked on. I don't know that there's any consensus has been garnered on any one certain plan, but that's certainly something that's in the mix.
Do you feel like it's something that needs to be done, that if the PO is defunded, that something's got to be there to help the people that can't help themselves literally?
Well, and you're talking about different groups of people as well, Dave. You got those that traditionally would be on Medicaid that are below 17% of the poverty level, and then you got the new people that are being put on the private option up to 138% of the poverty level. So the situation we're in is the PO went into effect January 1st. It's funded through the fiscal year of June 30th. So you got people that are on a plan that if funding is stopped July 1st, then the question is that plan good for the end of the year? Is it paid on a monthly basis, or was it the whole premium paid at the first of the year? So there's a lot of research has to be done on exactly what the effects are to the people that are already on the private option if it's defunded.
Okay, Chris. I mean, did you have anything for them, you guys?
Would they go ahead? Would they simply roll over to Medicaid for those that were eligible for that, and then or would they move into or have the opportunity to move into the Obamacare plan at mid-year. Is that
well? You've got the if you go back to had the PO never been put in place and just look at how the Affordable Care Act is structured, people on Medicaid below 17% of the poverty level, they could be on there already. That was what was called the woodwork, the people that could be on Medicaid that weren't on Medicaid. So those people would still be covered under traditional Medicaid. From 100 to 138%, without Medicaid expansion, they automatically go on to the exchanges. So it gets back to this hole that would be created between 17 and 100% of poverty level. And what happens with that group, the people in that group that are already on the PO if funding is stopped.
Okay. Now, I know there was some discussion about putting some of those people on a catastrophic plan, maybe making that their plan B as opposed to the private option of what they came out with, but I don't know if that's something that could be crafted and or drafted and put into place during this session.
Well, if it's policy during this session, I would say probably not. Because it is just a fiscal session, and I don't know that there's a big appetite for doing a lot of policy changes. But again, if 67 people in the House think there's a bill out there worthy of being passed, it could happen, and then 2/3 in the Senate. But the real issue, I think, is whether or not the private option is funded, and whether that starts in January 2015 if it's not funded, or whether it starts in July of 2014 of not being funded. And I think the rub comes in the fact that our fiscal year starts July 1st, and then you got the calendar year that the policies are on.
Well, I think one of the things that is somewhat surprising to me is that there has been no Plan B, and it. So if in fact it is defunded, which it looks like it's headed in that direction, with Irving now deciding to vote no, John Cooper coming in, so in the Senate you have enough votes to defund, and I've been hearing that there are quite a number of people that are representatives that have also indicated that once voted yes, they're now going to vote no, and so that's something that's going to be before you. Maybe 67% of the House and the Senate would vote to do something differently.
Well, as far as speculation goes, I always go back to April of last year when we stopped the funding with a +8 vote margin on Monday.
That's true.
And then it passed with a -3 vote margin on Tuesday. So I'm not going to make any speculation on whether or not the votes are there to pass or fail the funding for the private option until we've voted and gavelled out. That's when I'll be able to tell you.
Yeah, I understand.
Representative, there were a lot of people this time last year that were saying, we should have a special session, that there was no reason to rush into this. There was plenty of time to make a decision. And I believe, actually, to your credit, you were one of those people who said, there's no need to rush into this. We need to take time out, not try to do it before the end of the session, have a special session, and really take a good look at this. Where do you think we would be? I mean, don't you think we would be a lot better off now if we hadn't rushed into this with having so many unanswered questions? And it seems like every day we're finding out something else new.
Yeah.
Don't you think we would have been better off to wait?
Absolutely, and I think I said that on TV multiple times, in the newspaper, on radio. I was really pushing the idea that we were rushing in to make a decision, and I believe the governor's office was wanting us to rush and make that decision. Yeah. This was call it what you want to. It was a $2 billion per year program, but it wasn't important enough to have a special session. Yet we were able to come back in a special session to deal with the teacher insurance issue.
Well,
and while we're talking about teachers' insurance, one of the things that I see that's a big issue with the private option right now is that it's based on a silver plan. But if you remember back in the special session for the teachers, part of what we were doing was encouraging and actually incentivizing the teachers to go to a bronze plan with a health savings account. So now we're in a situation where we've got people who can get subsidized silver plans while we're asking teachers to pay for a bronze plan with a health savings account. But the PO has provisions for a bronze plan and a health savings account, but it's not been put into place yet.
And isn't it true, Representative? I mean, you may not. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. You may not have these numbers in front of you, but a vast majority of the people that are enrolled in the private option actually won't pay anything out of pocket for their premiums. And so what you've got is people that are getting free silver plans, to your point, versus teachers that are having to pay out of pocket for their bronze plans. Is that correct?
Yeah, and whether you say free or subsidized, it's somebody's getting a silver plan for a lot less than what teachers are having to pay out of their pocket for a bronze plan.
And it was, I think, the stats last week in one of the committee meetings. It was 90% of them are covered 100%. That's for co-pays and everything.
Yeah, I don't know the exact percentages, but that sounds right, David. And also, it's not just teachers; it's private individuals that may have had something equivalent to a silver plan last year, who have, because of the cost increase, have dropped back to a bronze plan to keep their month-to-month payments closer to the same. So you got people working, paying taxes and footing the bill for these subsidized plans that are having to actually pay more for their plans that are providing less coverage for them.
That's a great point. What do we know about the population so far of the people that have enrolled in the private option? You're hearing a lot of this, and you're going to hear more of it, I think, this idea that we're just kicking sick people and poor people off of health insurance, and cold-hearted conservatives just don't want anyone to have health care. But isn't it true that, the large majority of the people that are enrolled in the private option are healthy, able-bodied people that have jobs? Isn't that the large percentage of who we're talking about here?
I know that was the desire to get those people signed up on it, but I haven't seen a breakdown of any kind of indicator of how healthy the people on the private option are versus
I should say the people that are eligible, not necessarily people that have enrolled, but the large majority of people that are eligible for the private option, because we already had, like you said, 0 to 17%. We already had a Medicaid program for people that were sick and disabled and poor. And so what we're doing now is, we're spending millions and millions of dollars a year to give healthy people insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's called Obamacare.
Yeah, exactly.
Private option,
exactly.
All right, I need to take a break. We'll be back.
Medicaid beneficiaries and the whole gamut. I was just visiting with a constituent who's a doctor who's able to tell me some of the real issues that we're seeing out on the ground with Medicaid expansion. He had a patient that was scheduled for a major surgery that had been issued a Medicaid number, but when they called to set up the surgery, they were told that this person wasn't in the system, and then found out that, indeed he has a number, but the Medicaid management system's not communicating with the health market exchange system, and they can't verify it. So it really puts these providers in a bad situation where they've got a client who's needing health services immediately, but because of the mix-up in the bureaucracy, they don't know if they're going to get paid for providing those services. And I think that's just a small story of something we're going to see on a larger scale as government gets more involved in health care.
Is the bottom line, I think, now that we've heard that State Senator Missy Irvin is going to change her vote and vote against funding the private option. We've got John Cooper, who's just been elected to where Bookhouse old spot was. He ran on defunding the private option, and I think there's probably more over on the Senate. It looks to me like it won't be funded. Are you guys going to be able to, it's like a vampire. Are you going to be able to drag it out of its coffin, out into the light, cut off its head, stuff it with garlic, put a stake through its heart, and light it on fire?
All right.
Not to get too graphic about what you would like to see done to the private option,
That's a way to go.
That was subtle, wasn't
yes.
it?
Just to get rid of it for once and for all.
Tell us how you feel.
Yeah, there may be a desire to do that. It's something that I've opposed all along, and I personally, I hope we're able to defund it and go back to a position to where the problem that the federal government created is the federal government's problem, and not one that we're trying to solve for the rest of the world here in Arkansas with a great disadvantage trying to deal with the federal government.
All right, Bruce Westerman, who is the majority leader. You'll hear him a lot after February 10th because we'll be over at the Capitol. He'll stop by. He'll talk from time to time. He'll keep us up to date on what's going on. And good luck on that, Bruce. And, of course, good luck on your campaign.
Appreciate that, Dave. I'm glad to be on any time. I'm going to head out to the Hot Springs Village Republican Party meeting that's getting ready to start, where we'll get to hear from our Republican gubernatorial candidates today.
All right. Well, you have a good one. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Bruce Westerman here on the Dave Elswick Show.